Nice little fish. Let's talk about crankbait fishing a minute. You know, back in the day when I won the Bassmasters Classic, and you know, all these baits were getting developed, new techniques going on, and you know, back then, heck, just about everybody fished with pistol grip rods, and you know, there was really no call for these longer rods except for maybe flipping and pitching, which started back about the same time for all of us. I mean, they'd been doing it out in California for a long time. But anyway, we started going to longer rods and deeper diving crankbaits and the whole works. But one thing that has stayed true throughout all of that is basically the action of the rod that you want for crankbait fishing. You want a moderate tip rod, and really probably the best thing for both worlds as far as all types of crankbaits is you want some glass in the rod. So that gives you a lot more moderate rod. And the reason you want that is you're using treble hooks, and a lot of times the fish will swallow the bait, a lot of times the fish will barely be nipping at the bait. So you want a rod that's got a very moderate tip, but you also want enough backbone in that rod to handle a big fish, to get those hooks buried in the fish, but also to be able to cast. You don't want a real flimsy rod all the way down in the rod. You need some backbone so you can load that rod up, load that tip up, and make a long cast. But basically, I believe that a 7.5 foot, or 7.6, 7.8, somewhere in there is one of the best actions there is for crankbait fishing. I used to always say deep diving crankbaits. Well, back then I was talking about, you know, a 20 plus or a DD22 or a fat-free shad, or, you know, something in that neighborhood that ran in the 15 to 20 foot water. Now we got all kinds of big, huge crankbaits that run 25 and 30 feet deep, and you got to go to a little bit heavier action rod. You still want that moderate tip, but you want probably a longer rod, and one with a little more backbone to throw those real big baits. But basically what we're talking about here is a diving bait. This is a man's 20 plus. That right there is called a lias green. Of course, the 20 plus wasn't out when I won the Classic, but that's the color that I won the Classic on. And I had man's make up a bunch of them. But the 20 plus is not going to go 20 feet deep on a normal cast. Okay, so but it is going to get down there really deep. But the thing you want to remember about these type baits is you may throw the bait out there 50 yards, but it's only going to be down to its maximum depth for about a third of that distance. So it's going to take you 2/3 of the way back to the boat in order to get that bait down to the depth you want to get it down to. So that's something to really pay attention to. And also, when you're crankbait fishing, one of the main things I tell people is always point your rod at the bait. That way you're in control of that bait. And if you're coming, like I'm around a lot of timber right now, and if you're in a lot of timber or stuff that can hang you up, if you're pointing that rod tip right at the bait, you can walk it over a lot of that stuff. Like I came over three or four standing stobs under the water then, but I'm able to walk it over. As far as your gear ratio on your reel, I like to stay from a 5 something to 1 to a 6 something to 1. So like this is an ELS Bruin reel. It's an Elias Legend Series Bruin reel. This is a 6.2 to 1. I feel like that is a very, very good action for these baits like a man's 20 plus, Strike King 6XD, and a Norman DD22, baits that run in that neighborhood. I'm throwing this on a 7.6 FX custom rod, and it's a cranking action rod. It's got a moderate tip, and it's got some glass in it. So I feel like I'm set up perfectly for diving bait. But if you'll notice how I keep my rod, I keep my rod pointed right at the bait. So you can see out here I got standing timber. And this rod, I can walk that bait through. I may get hung up, but I can walk that bait through a lot of that timber. So like I just came over something in. But that's potential places to get bit. If you go grinding that bait through there and not paying attention, you're gonna hang it up and you're gonna mess your, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna mess your spot up. So that's just a tip on the initial learning to throw deep diving crankbaits. A lot of people don't throw them because they hang up. They're a lot of work, but the rewards are amazing when you get on a school of fish. You can really. All right, I made a little move to another spot. I hung my bait up. I had to stick my reel down in the water to get it loose. So this will probably give me a hassle or two. This is another one of those places where there's just all kind of cover. Stumps and logs and stuff, just a lot of stuff for the fish to get in. I'm really surprised that's not trying to backlash on me. Out here, they may want a little more noise than that 20 plus is making. There's several fans came out with a deep diving loudmouth. A lot of rattles in it. Some other companies came out with louder baits. I'll give one of them a try. I'm almost positive I had a bite. There he is. I thought I had a bite right there earlier. They just being finicky. Maybe color. That's a pretty good fish. See, I had to throw all over. That's what happened. Oh, back hook. There's that. Change colors and see if that makes a difference. Come here. That's the last green. So he flopped around and got another hook in him. He only had one hook in him. Started. The most important thing you need to take away from what we just did here is keeping that rod pointed right at your bait when you're reeling it in. Hold your rod down toward the surface. You can walk that rod up when you're trying to walk that bait over stumps or whatever it is down there, and and you won't hang up near as much. I wish I can't really, you can't imagine what I'm pulling this bait through right now. There is a lot of stuff out there. Adapt your rod, your reel, and your line to the situation you're in. And pay attention to that crankbait as you're swimming it through, as it's kicking off the bottom. Feel for everything. Don't set the hook on everything that you feel. Feel it over that kind of stuff, and you'll get a bite. See, all that stuff I was just coming through, I had that one bite, I didn't catch him, or I thought it was a bite. But if I hadn't been paying attention and started grinding that bait through there, I'd have probably hung up. I had to go over and get it, and may not have caught that fish. See if there's another one right there. Now we got the cast down. All right, just to show you what I was talking about, I'm going to throw a bait that makes a little more noise. You'll probably be able to hear it on this aluminum boat as it's coming back to the boat. That's a totally different. See, it's a totally different color and louder, and here I get bit right off the bat. He ain't very big, I don't think. Just to keep him. He's got one hook. Paralyzed him. Little guy. See, that was the first cast with a different color and a different noise. When I get on a school of fish and in a tournament, find them in practice or whatever, I'm gonna have 3 or 4 different colors and sounds and everything. There he is. The fourth one slapped him. I think they're just smaller fish in there. It's a little better fish there. Felt like he was small to start with. It's about like that first one. Better than the first one. He gave up though. Huh. I got you paralyzed or what? Fell right out of his mouth. That's just a 2.5 pounder. Sometimes you can just tie on one color and wear them out. But most of the time, you got to treat it just like anything else. Like you use different colored plastic worms, you use different color spinner baits. It's the same way with crankbaits. You gotta have several different colors tied on, especially when you're fishing around the same area. You want to show them different type things. But anyway, that's just a quick tip on crankbait fishing. I believe if you'll try it, you'll like the results.